Good evening, everyone. My name is April Tribe Juke, and I am here tonight with the Beacon of Light podcast with Miss Elizabeth Billingsley, and she's going to be sharing some incredible things tonight. Since the entire month, we are focusing in on Domestic Violence Awareness and Action Month. Like our conference says, which happens on different nights throughout the month, we want to unite together in light. So welcome everyone. As you're showing up, please share where you're from. Share the joy of this. If you know somebody that could listen to this tonight, we are really focusing in on a story that has to do with domestic violence and with the opportunity to become free and what happens beyond the violence. So please share. Please let us know that you're here. It looks like a few people are popping on here tonight. Thank you, Mary. She wishes us some good luck. And we will take that. Thank you so much. Again, my name is April Tribe Juke, and I'm down here in Texas, in the Kyle area. And Elizabeth, where are you from?
I am here in Midwest City, which is a suburb of Oklahoma City in Oklahoma.
Excellent. It looks like we've got a fellow Oklahoman here.
Oh,
welcome,
hey.
Tina.
Hi, Tina. Yes, I know exactly where Eufaula is.
Oh, excellent. See, look at that. Great connections. We got our Okies here, and it is awesome. We are so grateful you guys popping up here tonight. So, Miss Elizabeth, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay, well, I've been in Oklahoma quite a while. I was actually born back east in South Carolina. And my family, we moved here when I was a child, and I went to college here. Moved away for a little while, did some nursing in some other states, came back, and now I'm a public health nurse in Oklahoma City. And I'm, of course, a writer and a cat mom, and I love to travel. And I also love to help people. So that's why I'm here tonight.
Excellent. In those helping moments, in all of the things that you've experienced with nursing, now with public health, I'm sure there's a lot of focuses on different areas of how public health can impact people, support people, help people. And a big part of some of this, I would say, public health has to do with our mental health, with our physical well-being. And when we talk about domestic violence and the verbal, narcissistic, emotional, spiritually degrading, financial, and physical that happens, as you are working in situations, I'm sure you see different things pop up. And you having experience with this from your own first marriage, as you can see on the ticker that's running down below there, this is going to be an honest, conversation. And we really want to have Elizabeth here share her story and, help us to understand parts and pieces that maybe we're not as familiar with. So Elizabeth, why don't you go ahead and jump on into this story?
Okay. Well, I met my late husband, Jeff Billingsley, in 2009. I met him actually through friends that I had known while I was living in Tennessee, in Memphis, Tennessee. So with that connection and with him, he actually ended up at the same church I was at after I moved back to Oklahoma City, interestingly enough. So with that connection, I felt confident that, I could be this person's friend. And then after we were friends for a little while, I thought it might go, somewhere else. And of course it did. And of course, this whole time he's charming. He's the quintessential perfect Christian guy. He's he says all the right things. He does all the right things, We dated for almost a year. We got engaged in August of 2010 in Chicago, which was a wonderful, trip. And I thought, wow, I've, met a really great guy who can, he can manage money. He's got a good job. We can talk about anything. We can figure anything out. And so that's the way it looked at the time. And then I married him on May 14th, 2011, and we began our marriage. Now, Here's the kicker. Okay. Probably in the fall, I would say October of 2010, there was an incident that occurred. Now, at the time, he was having trouble locating a job. He was a retired police officer, and he wanted to do some different things when he came here to Oklahoma City. So he was looking for a job. And we had gone on a motorcycle ride, had a great day. We stopped to take a picture. He wanted a picture with something. And I took the picture, gave him the camera back, was getting ready to get on the motorcycle. He looks at the picture and blows up. Verbally blows up. No particular reason other than he didn't like the picture. I got told how stupid I was. I got told how I can't take a picture right. I was basically being treated like I was 5 years old. And so this continued. And of course, I had never experienced anything like that. I wasn't around any men that talked to me like that. So when that first happened, I honestly, ladies and gentlemen, did not know what to do with that. And I'm sure if you've experienced that, you felt the same way. You didn't know what to do with this person. So this went on for probably 20, 25 minutes. Even as we're driving down the road, it probably took him a half hour to continue to berate me. And then finally, he just stopped. It was the strangest thing to me at the time. So I thought to myself, okay, this was my first red flag, but I didn't see it that way. I was looking at the circumstances of him not being able to find a job. And I thought, okay, the man's stressed, and I am a fair person. So I try to give people the benefit of the doubt. So I gave him the benefit of the doubt thinking, okay, that's that one-time thing. All right. So we go quite a while after that. And then some other things start popping up that again were red flags. In fact, the Lord gave me 4 outs, ladies and gentlemen, and I did not take them. Okay. One was that there were 2 financial issues that he suddenly had that he'd never had. And suddenly he was in financial trouble and had to tap into resources he shouldn't have tapped into to get what he needed. And so those were my other 2 outs. And then there was another blow up about our wedding and over where the wedding was going to be. He didn't want me talking to anyone about where I might want to have the wedding, even though we hadn't decided where we were going to have this wedding. So I had 4 instances where I could have put on the brakes and said, wait a minute, what's going on here? You're fine 1 minute, and then with these blow-ups, that's totally out of character. And then what's going on with this financial stuff? You've never seemed to have a problem. Is there something going on? Do we need to wait? And so I had 4 opportunities to have discussions like that. And I just blew them off. And, they say love is blind. Well, in this case, it's blind. And actually my eyes were, I would say, closed because they really were. And that is part of abuse. It's part of the deception. They're good at that, because what they usually do after something like that is they come back and they're real good at smoothing it over. And they're real good at saying the right things and even doing the right things. And he did that in all 4 instances. So, okay, we are married on the 14th of May, 2011. We go on the honeymoon. He blows up on the honeymoon. Not unusual for them to do that. Again, I give him another excuse. We proceed into our, what would be a 3-year marriage, as he did commit suicide. He would go long periods of time during those 3 years, the first year, And then as we got further into the marriage, his blow-ups would become fewer. They would become more and more at closer intervals. Okay. In fact, he got to where he would blow up every 3 weeks about something. It was like clockwork. Okay. And so I did not know who I was dealing with. He was getting more physical with it. It went from verbal to almost a physical, menacing, threatening posture. He was constantly putting me down. He was constantly, he even accused me of trying to harm him when all I tried to do was give him something to help him with pain and over-the-counter medication. He wanted something. He put things on our phone so he could track me. He didn't trust me, even though I was supposed to trust him. He started throwing things. He got to where he would throw things and knock things off the wall or off a table that were important to me. I finally had to start putting furniture between me and him because I kid you not, when this man would do this, he'd get a totally different look in his eyes. It's like his entire face would change to someone else's. And it's like he actually grew bigger. And I know that sounds crazy, but I firmly believe there's a spiritual element involved there, and it's evil. And so that is what you see. So I saw that more often than not. And then I would have to say our last blow up, he was consistently wanting to run up credit cards, and I let him, ladies and gentlemen. I did not stop it. I was afraid to stop it. I let it happen. He was financially abusing me, mentally abusing me, verbally abusing me, and he was beginning to start physically abusing me because those weren't enough. And you'll also find that it's not enough just to yell at you or scream at you. Yeah, it was scary, Amy, because I didn't know what to do. And so probably in May, it was May of 2014, it was right actually before our anniversary. We had our final blow up and I was done. He had run a credit card up, and he knew that we couldn't pay it off. And I had just given up trying to talk to him about money because he wouldn't have it. And so we went out to dinner, and I was just like, if it bounces, it bounces. This has got to come to a stop at some point. So I had just decided I'd given up. I was done. If we ran out of money, we ran out of money. So it bounced. He got mad. The charge wouldn't take. He got mad. So he proceeded to belittle me and berate me again. And I remember it was at that moment that I realized, okay, it's time for you to stand up for yourself. And I had actually been practicing that for about a month and a half prior. And please let me say this. You have to be very careful if you're going to stand up to them. You have to know what you're dealing with and who you're dealing with.
Because every situation is completely different.
Yes.
And so your situation, you knew how to monitor it at this time. You'd been practicing. You understood now his responses and everything like that. And so for you, it was the time to stand. And I feel that most victims who are in these positions, there comes a point where we know it's time. There's a few comments down here that, these things make sense. The light switch goes on and off. This must have been terrifying. All of these things definitely are there. And as a survivor of this, and now thriver and victor, the ways that happen, they're so individualized, and you yourself know when it's time. So share with us how you knew it was this time.
Well, for lack of a better explanation, I was tired. I was tired of being put down. I was tired of having to put furniture between us. I knew there had to be more to life than this. I knew there had to be more to marriage and love than this. Surely this was not love. I'd grown up in a loving home, and this was nothing like my home. And so for lack of a better way to describe that, I was done and I was tired. And you have to get to where you're done and you're tired. So that last evening, I said, look, I'm not doing this anymore with you. I'm going to pack a bag. My parents live here in town. And I said, I'm going to their house and I'm going to tell them what's been going on here. And I will never forget the look on his face. It was like he had this deer in the headlights look, like, oh my gosh, everybody's going to find out what I'm really like. And I remember he went downstairs and he stayed down there. And I believe that was the Lord actually protecting me. And because it's like he went into some kind of confusion and he didn't quite know what to do with that. And so I packed my bag. I went downstairs and the man was literally going around in a circle in the living room. So there was great confusion there. And I believe that was protection from the Lord himself. And I, please don't misunderstand me when I say that. I don't think the Lord inflicts that on people. I think what they're allowing to drive them inflicts that on them. And so I packed my bag and he said, well, you'll be back tomorrow, right? I said, no, I won't. And I left. And now again, just like April said, you have to know who you're dealing with. I am not in any way, shape, or form telling anybody else that's listening, you need to do it the way I did it. It might get you killed, okay? This particular man had never been voraciously physically violent, so I felt comfortable. He was getting that way. He had actually hit me with a hardback book about a month before because he didn't like a question I asked him. So, but that was not his pattern to become viciously, voraciously violent. So I felt comfortable doing what I'm doing. If you're dealing with somebody that's viciously, voraciously violent, that may not be something you can do. You may have to come up with a different plan to get out safely. So I do want to say that. So I was actually separated from him for a month. Yes, Lori, you have to know your situation. It is not a one size fits all when you're dealing with people like this.
Precisely. You do have to know what it is and the timing. You do have to be building networks. You do have to be making a plan. And like you had mentioned prior to this final charge on the credit card, a month prior, you had started to make some type of a plan. And each one of us who leaves, the planning is really important. Now, how it happens, how it structures, you can contact the 1-800 numbers that give you great support for the domestic violence hotline. All of these things are there for you. And I highly recommend that because you need to build a plan connected with a network. Many of the women who are watching tonight and a few who I know have shared that they had some support. They had a network. You're mentioning your parents. Maybe some others, it was a friend. For one I know in particular, it was a couple who kind of pulled this person aside and said, look what is happening. And that became that place of trust so that when the moment came to leave, that person knew I can depend on this group and follow through. Go ahead, Elizabeth.
Thank you. No, I love that. So I separated from him and I started keeping emails. I would not talk to him unless it was in written form. And I had contacted an attorney about divorce, probably about 2-3 weeks after I'd separated from him, because I'd tried to talk to him, tried to get him to go to counseling. I had tried to get him to see that, hey, this is not normal. And he just wouldn't do it. He wouldn't go to counseling with me. Or if he went to counseling, he went without me and then spent the whole time. The counselor that we had chosen, she told me later on, he'd spent the whole time running me down while he was talking. She could hardly get a word in. So I wasn't dealing with somebody that was very willing to change. and was not repentant at all. So I just decided to file for a divorce. I was done. I couldn't deal with it anymore. I also had the financial means. I was a nurse. I made pretty decent money. I could support myself. I realized, please hear me, I realize that is not always the case for everybody that's listening. And your plan, again, has to look a little different. So I moved in with my parents. I stayed there. They told me I could stay as long as I wanted to. They had actually seen a side of him that they had never seen before. They tried to actually do a counseling session with us, try to be the objective third party. He blew up at their home, and I honestly thought my dad was going to have to call the police. So it just was not a good situation. And so I was going to file for divorce. I'd left a message with the attorney, was waiting on a call back. And probably a week later, on June 10th, 2014, he'd had text blow-ups. He had actually started texting my parents horrible things about me, about them. I mean, he was losing grip on reality is what he was doing. And probably about a week's worth of that, he called me on a Tuesday evening and he said, "Can you talk?" And I said, "When I'm done with what I'm doing, I will call and talk to you." Because I was trying to be open to the fact that maybe he might see what he's doing wasn't working for him, and it just wasn't working at all, and he might get some help. So I called him Tuesday evening, June 10th, and the first thing he says to me is he says, "Well, in order for you to have peace, I have to leave." And so I thought, okay. I said, "So you don't want to go to counseling on Friday like we had discussed maybe 2 or 3 days before? You're not interested?" And he said, "No, I'm not interested." I said, "So you're good with going through on a divorce?" And it got quiet. And I said, "Hello? Are you interested in going through on a divorce? What do you mean by, for me to be at peace, you need to leave?" And then I heard something I'd never heard before on a telephone call. I heard a gunshot. And it echoed in my ear, and I thought, oh my gosh, did this man just call me and shoot himself? And that's what I thought. And I heard not one, but two. So I quickly hung up the phone. I dialed 911. One of our friends, he had been working at 911 for probably about a year. One of our friends, who was very dear to us, was the one that picked up the call, and that was good. That was God. And I told her what was going on, and then she told me, "Yeah, he hasn't been at work for 3 days. We were wondering what was going on." And I said, "You need to get somebody over there. I don't know what he's done or what he's going to do." And so I get off the phone with her, and I come out of the bedroom that I was in there at my parents' house. And my mother says to me, because she'd overheard it, she couldn't help it walking down the hall, that it wasn't a good conversation. And she says, "That wasn't good, was it?" And I said, "No." And I said, "I'm thinking about going over there." And my mother says, "You're not going anywhere." She says, "I will take the keys to your car. I don't care if you are 38 years old. You're not going over there." And I'm so glad she did that. Fast forward several hours. He had actually killed himself, but not at that time. He killed himself at 9:23 when he texted me. He killed himself at 9:23 that night when he texted me his last text. He said, "I'm going to go so you can be at peace." And he said, "I love you," which was totally confusing, as you might imagine. Totally confusing to someone that had just been through what I had been through with him and trying to work it out. And then all of a sudden you get that text, and that's done. So probably about 1:30, 2 o'clock, the police showed up, and they told me that indeed he had killed himself. So that began my journey on the other side of this. I talked with the police the following day. The gunshots I'd heard was actually him. And this is very important for those of you that may be going through this with somebody. He had taken our favorite wedding picture off the wall. He'd propped it up against one of my end tables, which was one of my favorite end tables with one of my favorite lamps on it. He had shot 2 times, 1 bullet into my head in that picture, 1 bullet into his. Okay. So the police told me, had I gone over there, they'd been working a homicide-suicide, not just a suicide. So I'm telling you, if they get to that place, or you know someone that's gotten to that place, or you're in a relationship with somebody that gets to that place, oh, definitely, Reagan. Had I gone over, I might be dead, actually, and not here talking to you. I don't think I'd be alive today. Not based on the state of mind that obviously he was in. So I want to caution you, don't go to them. That might be the last place you go, because they are not connected with reality. They're in a very dark place. They've been deceived, and they think this is the only way out is to kill themselves, and perhaps kill you because you're the reason. They've been deceived that way too. They've been told you're the reason for what's going on here. So they might kill you too. And the police officer was very adamant about that. Had I gone over, he'd been working a homicide-suicide, not just a suicide. So at that point, yes, Jan, woo. So at that point, I had to, post this. I had to plan a memorial service because I didn't think it was right not to. After all, I had loved the man. And so I planned a wonderful memorial service with him, and I had to decide pretty immediately, probably within 2 to 3 days after that, how I was going to respond for the rest of my life to this. I could shrivel up and die, physically, spiritually, emotionally, and mentally. Or I could allow Jesus to take this that no one would want to go through, that I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. I could allow Jesus to take something that Satan meant for evil, and I could allow him to turn it into something that would actually be redemptive. So let me explain how that happens. It happens with a choice for you to decide that it's not going to destroy you. This isn't the end for you. And so, I struggled with wanting to be gone. Don't think I didn't, because I did. But I had to grab hold of that very quickly and decide that that was not going to be my end. And that this was not going to be the end of my life as I knew it. And so, with the help of the Lord, me too, Tracy, I believe that. I believe that he did speak through my mom. Again, he protected me. I think there were many times he protected me. And Lori, that is due to the healing power of Jesus Christ, who redeems all things. Now, maybe that doesn't mean somebody comes back from the dead. I'm not talking about something like that, okay, necessarily on this side. But it does mean that he can heal you. Thank you, Nancy. Hey, I know Nancy, y'all. She goes to my church. So that's what that means. It means he can take your life and make it a story of something beautiful out of ashes. And I really feel like that's what he's done. He's raised me up out of ashes, and he's made me something beautiful, and I get to share it. And I have learned so much about myself. I've learned about boundaries and how important they are. I've learned about what love is and what it isn't. If you're looking for love, you need to look at 1 Corinthians 13. And if it doesn't look like that, it's not love. And abuse is not love, because it doesn't look like 1 Corinthians 13. And I have learned, golly, the Lord has shown me where the roots of some of my own choices were. Because now listen to me very carefully. I am not saying that anyone is ever responsible for the abuse of their abuser. They're not. But a lot of times what you have to do is you have to go and sit with the king, and you have to find out what inside of you is, hold on just a second, there we go. What inside of you is attracting that type of predatory person to you. And so not only have I learned a lot about my husband and what he went through as a child, he was actually abused physically, mentally, and emotionally as a child by his father. So he was repeating what he saw, and that cycle didn't get broken in his life. And so he repeated it over and over. I was not the first person he had abused. He had, it turns out, had abused several women before me, women some of them didn't know about till after the fact. They hide many things because they're ashamed and they're broken and they're hurting.
Exactly. When we are in those hurting, broken places, it's a place that we don't want to share. Right. When I finally escaped and left, I left it all there. And for 12 years, he didn't see the children, nothing. We had our ways. And at the same time, he was still victimizing other people until last summer of 2019, I had to make a stand and stop the rest, because I thought, if I know what's happening to these other women, and many of them were underage girls, and if I knew what was happening with them, and if they found out about me and said, you never said anything, you never told us, that's my responsibility. So I knew waving that white flag was as good as come and get us again. And the news reporter said to me, are you going to be safe? And I said, no, we are not going to be safe. But with this flag going out, I know at least we've stopped the 9. There won't be any more further than this. And it is the scariest part to do, but we have to do those things. We do have to do it.
And I am in 100% agreement. Yes, Lori, it is. He puts a mirror in front of you, not to show you, not to condemn you, not to berate you like your abuser did. But because he loves us, he wants to heal all the broken places in us, whether it's related to abuse or whether it's related to lies we believed. How I got to that point in life went all the way back to being a teenager, and they were just lies I picked up from my own peers, and they got down in my heart and they grew roots. And I became a people pleaser, trying to become accepted. And people pleasing is a big, big deal. Abusers are looking for people pleasers. They thrive on that because they know you'll do exactly what they want. And so you just have to sit with the king and let him show you what exactly you're emitting. It's like we all have radars and we're emitting certain signals. And so, and predators are looking for that. And I do want to say this about my late husband. And one of the things, not just that the Lord showed me about his abusive background, my late husband actually, I do believe he knew the Lord, but he could not break this cycle, and he didn't know what to do about it. And I firmly believe that's why he took his life, because I had learned about some of his patterns before, and I do not believe he wanted to repeat those patterns. He was tired of repeating those patterns, but he was deceived into believing that was the only way to fix that. And so I believe that no matter where someone is, if they cry out to Jesus, Jesus meets them where they are. And I believe that Jesus met him where he was that night, and he's with Jesus. His parents actually came to know Jesus later in life. So he actually was able to tell me he actually got to see his father before his father passed away, which I didn't think he'd go see his dad. But he did, and his dad had come to know the Lord. So all 3 of them now are in heaven, and they are okay, and they're healed. And so that's one thing that Jesus has redeemed already. He's redeemed that. He's redeemed me, as I'm the second thing. He's healed me. He has given me this ability to write, which I wish I had picked up 20 years earlier when he was laying it on my heart. But you know how that goes sometimes with life. Sometimes we want to go in our own direction. So he's given me a story to tell people, and a way to help people see. Yes, you got to sit with the king. And I can't actually take credit for that, Tracy. My pastor actually has said that many times. He's here locally at a place called Grace Church in Choctaw, Oklahoma. His name's Steve Eden. Check him out sometime. He said that many, many times, that we have to sit with the king who knows us well, better than we know ourselves. And so I have this story that may seem dark, but I don't focus on the dark. I focus on the light that the Lord has brought me. And I have wonderful friends, wonderful family who supported me through the whole thing. And I have a wonderful church that's supported me from the time it happened to now. And I cannot implore each of you enough. Pay attention to your relationships. Pay attention to what they're doing and what they're saying. If it doesn't line up, if it looks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck. Okay? It's not something else that you might think it is. And then secondly, I just implore you to sit with the king and let him have your pain, and let him have your anguish and your agony and your grief. And I can tell you, on the other side of that, which that's not going to be real pleasant, but on the other side of that, there is life and there is freedom and there is hope. And I'm a walking, talking example of that. And I just can't thank you all enough for listening to my story tonight. And April, I can't thank you enough for having me tonight either.
You are so welcome. These are the stories that bring hope. This is why I invite anyone, any authors on who have a story of hope, because we know we have to go through the tough stuff. And this is tough stuff she's talking about. Yes, it matched with the Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and the story needs to be out there and shared. And many of the people who I saw pop up tonight, they have a part to play in this. And many are supporters themselves. Many have taken books to shelters. Many have themselves experienced and now looking on the other side saying, I can see that's not healthy. I want the healthy side of things. And being with God, with Christ, with understanding how redemption, repentance, all of it works. And it's our own choices that lead us into these pathways. So thank you so much, Elizabeth. Thank you, everyone who've been so supportive. If you would like to get a hold of Elizabeth, we have running underneath here her website. Please contact her. She'll share with you her book, her story, even more. And we just want to thank everyone tonight. It's been a wonderful evening. Yes. Thank you all for coming and showing up. God bless everybody.
Hi, guys. Thank you. Bye.